the cup and the league all to be won. Everyone knows there's a job to be done, and with a team so fine, I'm proud they're mine. We'll be singing this song. For real hearts from family athletic, and now we are on song. For real hearts from family athletic, and we'll go marching on.
The Dunfermline Athletic Former Players Association podcast is sponsored by Starnut Apparel. Affordable and stylish clothing born on the terraces. Listeners of this podcast can get 10% off their order by using code PODCAST at the checkout. Just head to www.starnutapparel.co.uk.
Welcome to the Dunfermline Athletic Former Players Association podcast, Walking Down the Holbeath Road. Join us as we take a trip down memory lane with some of the most iconic players and managers to grace the pitch at East End Park. From reminiscing about their glory days to sharing insights on the game today, these legends will offer a unique viewpoint on the beautiful game. I'm your host, Mikey Motkiewicz. Before we start this episode, the Former Players Association would like to extend our warmest congratulations to James McPake and the entire team on winning the League One Championship. It was an outstanding achievement and a true testament to the hard work and determination of everyone involved. James's leadership and dedication has been instrumental in guiding the team to this success, and we are truly proud of the way you have represented Dunfermline Athletic throughout the season. On this latest episode, we speak to the current kit man at the club, Mo Hutton, who is now in his 30th year working for the Pars. Joining the club under Dick and Bert, we hear about the highs and lows during his time in the game, what really goes on in a dressing room, and what does it take to be a kit man, and a lot more. So sit back, relax, and get ready to relive some unforgettable moments with us as we walk down the Holbeath Road with Mo Hutton.
Right, so Mo, thanks for joining us on the latest episode of the podcast. How are you getting on?
I'm doing alright, buddy. It's just bad, busy time. The pre-season, everything goes out the window, and you've just got to start, like every season, you're preparing for the next one. You actually prepare for the next one at the end of the last one because you've got all the orders to put in for kit, towels, slips. I'd like to thank Brian for my towels as well. He gave us 90 towels this year.
Right,
Pars
nice.
TV.
Yeah.
And the former players are always putting money in as well, as you know. I'm always dipping into their pockets. So
That's what the money is there for, mate. So talking about pre-season now, obviously it's different for a kit man. You don't go on holiday for 3 weeks like the players might do. So what is going on at the moment for you?
Well, the kit arrived last week, so a lot of it has to go to the engineering agencies to be logoed up for the SRJ. Then I get it back, then I size it. Luckily enough, the 12, how many players have we got? 18, I think we've got retained, counting youth, young boys.
Right.
So I've managed to get their size before they left, and then I go through this list, and then I've got all their sizes here and all the kit, because I got samples last year. So it's a different ball game. It's not like Jommy, you know what sizes were what. So I've got all their sizes here, so I'm just going round doing what I can at the moment till it all comes back for engineering. And then I've got Bobby and give me a wee hand to count all the strips, because you've got to count everything as it arrives as well, in case there's a shortage.
Of course, yeah.
Because if you didn't get that at the start, then you've got a battle on your hands. So there's quite a few things still to come. There's a second order replaced, which hasn't arrived yet. But I go on holiday on the 5th of June. So I'm trying to get as much done before I go. What eats into my holidays a wee bit, but you kind of just do it for the cause, and you just get on with it. So that's just part and parcel of the job. Well, it always has been for me anyway.
Yeah, life as a kit man, eh?
Aye, well, you're doing it for the team, you're not doing it for any individuals. You just want, when they come back I think we're back on the 19th,
right.
You just want everything to be right, and there's no any hiccups. You've got spare kit there for trialists.
You want to make it as smooth as possible for the players, don't you?
That's my job. Just make sure everything's transitioned. They'll probably have a wee go about the colour this year, but that's not my problem. But we'll look smart when we go down to training, and that's the main objective. And then hopefully kick on as we did this year.
That's it. So speaking about the season just past, you've been here a long time, as we'll speak about in many promotions. How does last season rank for you in terms of how the team performed and the way we won that league?
I was up there because the consistency was there. Even in the bad games, we did a bit of rub of the green in games, but I thought individually and collectively as a squad, that's probably one of the closest squads I've ever seen. There was no sort of Billy Big times or anything. Everybody was in it together, and even the manager, Davy, Monty, Harty, everybody was kind of involved. We had a wee changeover with physios, but even everybody there's moved in. They've kind of slotted in with everybody, and even you and the sports scientists. So there was a bit of upheaval last pre-season, but it all settled down again, so it was good. Then Sammy gives me a hand here, and Ian and the laundry, they're kind of steady eddies to keep things going as well.
So during a season, what was a typical week for you as a kit man? Obviously you've mentioned Sammy and Ian and the great job they do, and Marie, that helps you. What was a typical week for you?
Well, I'm always thinking about the next game, or the next, so even when you finish a game, you're actually thinking about the next game on the same, like the Saturday. The equipment hamper, just make sure it's tidy, everything's dry inside it, because I take 6 hampers to game, so everything's got its place. Even when you start washing, you're thinking about, am I playing with the same kit next week, which you've probably spoken to the kit man, whoever we're playing. I always give the home team their goalkeepers, for example, are quite funny creatures. They all want the same colour all the time. It's just one of these things they've done. They feel comfortable in that colour. So I try and get whoever, if it's Dennis or whoever, I try and get them that colour for every game if I can. And then it depends obviously on who you're playing, and then you can change it. But most kitmen are the same boat. They want to facilitate for their own players, their own team. Edinburgh City last year, we always had to play in an away strip because they wear white. Their home strip's black, or their away strip's black, sorry. So there was always that, just... As soon as the washing goes on after a game, the first team hamper is, if I'm playing with that next week, I can just top it back up.
Yeah.
If no, it's got to be emptied. This year we've got 3 strips, so I have to take all the different Under Armour shorts, socks, goalkeepers, changeover. The warm-up stuff, I always take a few extra warm-up tops in case somebody gets soaked. And then they're going to have to sit on the bench with that wet top on, so you try and keep stuff dry for that as well. So there's quite a lot to get involved with it, but basically you're just trying to make sure you're starting to prepare as soon as that game finishes. Because you always come in, put the washing on, come back on the Sunday. If I'm within an hour of travelling, I would come back here after a game and put the washing on. Any further than that, I kind of just come back the Sunday morning. Yeah.
So it never stops really, does it?
No, it's a 7-day-a-week job. I mean, a lot of people think I'm off my head for doing it, but if you didn't do it that way, you're not doing it right.
Yeah.
And especially last year with us having white, you can't leave white.
No, of course.
I've seen people leaving white stuff and you can't get the marks out. It's bad enough to get out of the game, but if you leave it, it's worse. So, but that's just part and parcel of the game again. Just most kitmen I know, they do the 7 days,
Yeah. It's just part of the job. What about a match day then for you? Like preparing on the Saturday morning up until kick-off. What you come in here in the morning, don't you? And then what's kind of your preparation for when the players arrive?
Well, the way it works this year is the 18s play on a Friday. So they are a Friday night, a Friday afternoon. So they would bring their kit back, shoes would bring it back, leave it there. So that's to be washed and put at the road before we start. But I would prepare for the Saturday game and the Thursday, Friday. I pack bundles, so everybody's got their own number on. Every player that comes in has their own warm-up top T-shirt, their shorts, and then their strips are individually sized as well. And then I make bundles up with their warm-up top, their T-shirt, their shorts, their slips, if they want the cut-offs. Most of them wear cut-offs now, and then their ankle sock. And then just make that. So everybody's got a bundle. I just place the bundles out, and then it was a matter of just putting the strips and the shorts on top. Last year I pressed the shorts because they were nice. They were cotton. They were a nice feel about them, so they didn't look right if you didn't press them.
Yeah.
So I really prepared Thursday, Friday. Then the Saturday's the easy part really for me because it's all done. And then after the game, once they come, because they've got individual needs, some of them have their own, some Under Armour if they want it, or, like shorts, cycle shorts, some of them wear, some of them don't. So I try and put that in the bundle so they've not got to go raking the boot on the day.
Keep it as simple for them, eh?
They just come in, they've got their stuff.
Yeah, so they're prepared.
The boots are there. My grandson's been helping me too, Jack. He's been coming in to help me with games. He knows what the boots are as well, and the shin pads. So everything's laid out for them coming in, and then just the manager has this wee crack with them, and then get on with the game. Let's get started. So.
And you mentioned something there about the players cutting socks now. Like, obviously this is a new thing in football from when you started 30 years ago. Football's changed so much. What's your opinion on all these quirks now that the players do with a kit?
I keep asking players why they do it. They're all trying to tell me that the football sock slips. There's only one guy here wears it, or last year was Aaron Cumry. He was the only one that wore a full sock. Everybody else wore cut-offs. And I think it was started by the likes of Ronaldo and people like that wearing these socks. They were probably getting fortunes for wearing them. And it just went on from there. But now you can buy them all nicely tailored. Before they were just cutting them and it just looked like the ragamuffins. It's horrible jaggy edges at the bottom, but now they're actually tailored and come that way. I've not got a problem with it. Just it means ankle sock as well. But we do have a grip sock, which is a better.
Yeah.
A lot of them do like them, a lot of them don't like them because they can't get them on their boot, the foot. Once it's on the foot, to slip it into the boot, it kind of restricts it, and some of them don't like that because their boots are really tight. Everybody wants a tight fit boot now.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but it never like that when I played. Just wide foot, just get them on, tie them tight with a lace, but you can actually hear some of the feet going in. Oh, it just slips in, it's that tight. But the cut sock.
We'll go through your career in football, but what's been the most unusual thing a player's requested from you as kitman over the years? Has there been anything just absolutely bonkers?
Nah, not really. I've kind of laid out my stall before. They know he asked me for daft things, you know what I mean? I kind of growl just to keep myself. I've always found since I started doing the job, whereas when Joe was there, Joe was the most accommodating man in the world, do anything for him. I kind of turned the other way. I was like the bad cop, he was a good cop. So they didn't actually ask me for daft things, because they can't, I would just blow up and say, it was even when they started doing the cut-offs. I said, you realise the cut-offs, so you hate to wear them all season then. And then they did agree to it, but now it's just went full circle. Nobody's really asked me for anything daft. No.
Cool. We'll cover Joe Nelson through this podcast, but going right back to the start, Mo, tell us a little bit about your own football career as a youngster and your kind of background in football way back then.
Well, I played school football, and then I met a lot of these people like Jim Leishman and all these boys at school, and even Dick Campbell and all the boys that I can remember them at school, in school football. And then I went to play for the Railway Club, which was a good successful boys club here at that time. And then I've kept in touch with numerous folk, my pal Gunter as well, who's passed on now. He was a big part of my life at that time, and David Drummond, Bobby Drummond. We played against the Leishmans and all these boys and that as well when they were all younger boys. They were a year younger than us. And Andy Young started the youth team here, and then because we were a successful team, we played them every Sunday for about a month, 6 weeks, and he would bring trialists in all the time. That's when John Ferguson, Leishman, all these kind of guys started to play for Dunfermline youth team, and he was the first man to sort of do that. Then I went on to play at Lokelly Albert junior football. I went for a few trials with Preston North End, Raith Rovers. I was here for a while, trained here when I was 15. Used to go to the gym. We were just talking about that the other day to Watty Logie, and it was all about Jordan McGaughey and Backy Morn, we called them, and that. And it was just characters in the game, Jim O'Neill. You'd go to the gym was where the shop is now, and the pillars in it, and they'd bounce you off the pillars and say, you hate to be quicker, son. And that's how you sort of learnt your growing up, boys 15-year-old against men. And Dad Baden was about to take the reserves at that time, and a training session was a running session. He was round the track kind of stuff. You never really got a lot of the ball. And then we used to run to Humbug, train at Humbug and then run back.
Wow. From here?
From here, aye. That was part of your sort of... you can probably get
Couldn't imagine that nowadays,
half an hour with the ball and you're an hour and a half travelling each way, you know. But that was their education. It was great for me. And then I went to play for Cowdenbeath Royals. Went to Raith Rovers for a trial, and it was Scott Simon actually picked me up. I got a phone call out of the blue. I couldn't remember who Scott Simon was, and it was of course the Rangers manager. And I says, I've not got a car or something. He says, right, no worries son, I'll pick me up at the door at the house, came to the house for me. And then we had a game against a reserve team, and I was kind of out my depth, so I didn't go any further than that. But I went to Preston North End, and I was supposed to go with a boy, and he actually broke his leg the day, but I was playing with the 16s at Railway Club, he was playing with the 18s, Colin Brough, the boy Brough. It was here as his son. He was
Grant?
Grant, aye, his father.
Yeah.
And he broke his leg the day we were going, so I ended up going to Preston myself, and I was there for 2 weeks, and then just because I was trying to catch up, you ended up with hematomas. They called them up in your thighs here, and you couldn't hardly walk. It was just... I always remember playing, my first game there was against Man United, and they had a place called the Farm, like a training ground, and this boy's gave me a torrid. He's just, every time he got the ball, he was just past me. So the old boy walking his dog, and he says to me, just remember son, you can't run with a sore leg. So, that kind of stuck with me through my football career, you know, when anybody's playing against you, try and get in first, but it was good.
And who was it in the Man United team? Any names that ended up making it to the first team?
Oh, it was that far gone ago. That's way back now, Mikey. No. But at Preston at that time, there was 30 full-time professionals, and 26 of them were Scottish. The boy Archie Gemmell was actually at Preston at that time as a young boy. So we stayed right in digs right across for the park, and then they had a training park beside the ground, but it was that well used. It was just then turned into a mud bath, because didn't matter what the weather was, that's where they trained. But they would go to the farm now and again, which was maybe 3 miles outside the town. That's where they played all their kind of reserve games and stuff.
Again, changed days, eh?
Aye, completely now. I see some of the pitches now.
It's Bowling Greens now, eh?
I'm not an AstroTurf fan either. I just think, like last year, it must come back and haunt some of these young boys that play and train all the time on AstroTurf. They talk about brain injuries. It'll be interesting to see how...
Yeah, for joints and...
backs and knees, everything. Aye, that'll be a big one for me, just to keep an eye on how that all works out.
And then going back to when you were a kid, what's your memories at Dunfermline Athletic when you growing up?
Oh, when I was like 13 and the European football was going wild here then. At that time, believe it or not, Inverkeys in small town, we used to run 2 buses, two buses every like European night. You pay your £2 or whatever, get on the bus, and then they would drop you off, and I went myself. It was one of the things, always somebody in the bus looked after you.
Yeah.
And the buses parked along Holbeath Road at that time. They never went and parked in buses things. You got the number of the bus, and then you knew where the bus was going to stop, and that's where it got off. And you just looked for the boys, and he always waited for you. And that's how life was then. You just come on, sir, and you get your seat and back down the road. But some of the European nights was brilliant here. Just to remember the place being jammed and the smells. That's what got me more than anything. You can smell the liniment everywhere. It just seemed to come out. I don't know where it came from.
What games do you remember back then and players?
Oh, well, Bertie, of course, and boys like that, Barry Mitchell, Alec Edwards. I always used to watch them when we were up between with the young teams, my mates and that, and you'd always see them going at the Regal for their lunch, and they're always smartly dressed and stuff like that, and you think yourself. I had an auntie actually, we stayed in Crossford, and she had Ben Martin staying as her, when he came across it first, before he got his head. She sort of looked after him and fed him and stuff like that. I never actually met him. Every time I went to her house, he was never there, but
Were these guys like superstars back then? Obviously playing European football and winning Scottish Cups and...
I didn't think so. They were just kind of down to earth. They're just like normal people.
I mean,
once you get to know.
to like you guys seen them in the Regal and stuff, they stood out.
You always, because they were always smartly dressed, and you're saying to yourself, they were never aloof for me. I noticed people walking up and talking. I never went and approached them, but because Alec was just a wee bit older than me, and I thought at that age he was a magnificent athlete, and the way he walked and everything, he was on his toes, and he was always immaculate.
Yeah.
And I thought, you'd like to be in that kind of range, because you always had a dream of being a football player, and we'd be going down to the snooker club, they'd be coming down, you know what I mean? The snooker club is underneath the
Is that Malocco's snooker club?
That was just where everybody met, and that. When we were young boys, before we went to a game, we'd go and meet there, have a game of snooker, and maybe go and watch the football, the 12 o'clock show, on the ball that's been replaced now, but they always had that wee show, and so we'd go there before we'd go to the games. It was great.
Good times. And fast forward a few years later, 93, you get the opportunity to come and help the football club. How did that all come about, and what was your role at that point?
Well, what happened there was Bert and Dick had been at the Scythe, and I'd been giving them a hand with the younger team down there, like Gordon Forrest, now playing at Heart, the assistant boy at Hearts. He was playing, his dad was a wee scout at Raith Rovers, Bobby Forrest. Yeah. And his brother was the secretary, I think. Was it Alan?
I'm not
sure his name's Alan, anyway. He was all involved with the Scythe. So I kind of knew them, and then when they went there, and then I was we went to the semi-final of the Scottish Cup or something, like with the under-18s. Then when Bert and Dick got the chance to come here, I'm quite close with Dick, and then he says, come on, we're going to start some here, a new revolution, hopefully at Dunfermline, and be part of it. So I came in, and then within a space of months, they brought in a guy called Dave McParlin. Because at that time, when they first came in, there were only two guys here, two youth players. And Bert's ambition was to start a youth development. So he kind of kicked it all off again. But it was a boy called Derek Clark and Stephen Ferguson, who's now the CEO up at Ross County. Yeah. They were only two guys that were here, young team, or classed as apprentices anyway, So when Davey came in, got a bigger role, he was probably one of the most entrepreneur boys I've seen in youth football. Davey knew where to go and get money from the council, i.e. we started coaching classes, bringing boys in, and we wouldn't get the money, but what we would get is a use of facility. Yeah. So Davey then had a place to take when he started to build up a squad. So he would take kids at Dalgety Bay, and the council would charge whatever it was for the money, and then they would keep that. And then they would say, right, I need a slot for the under 12s, because we only started at 12 or 14s and 16s team, like this, the first kind of year or so. So there was a place to go then. Then he got a sports match. I don't know if you've ever heard of that. It's a money thing. So if somebody gives you money, we did again, C.R. Smith, he goes there, talks to the guys, he gets a minibus. Yeah, I remember the minibus kicking about. So the minibus is worth 34,000. So that's the cash you can go then to the council, and they sports match it. So that was 64,000, 68,000 in a kitty. The money didn't belong to the football club, it belonged to the council. But if you needed 40 boys, training kit, go a trip, as long as you could justify to the guy that you were going to spend it on the use, and then they started all these other things. It was tremendous just to watch the way he did it. And he went to Carnegie Trust, again, charity stuff, away for the club. And it was brilliant the way he built it up, Oh, just amazing. Aye. So then, of course, we started getting our own kit, so we needed somebody to do that. So I sort of stepped in there. Then I started doing the 16s, me and Bobby Drummond started doing that. There was Chris Carnlish, Davy Hunter, Gordon Arthur, a guy called Jim Matthew. We were all doing things, we weren't getting paid. No. We just wanted to be trying to make the place better, improve it all. And another boy, McDermott, there was probably 20 people just helping and not getting paid, but just to try and make things better. And Davey was driving it all through the time until he went to Motherwell. He was at Motherwell with Billy Davis before, and then we got John Ritchie. And then what happened then was they gave it a massive boost when he came in. They got a real budget, and he was managed to get kit, which was kit for everybody. So we started all the teams. So really needed somebody to liaison and do all the kit. So I started doing all that with John, and that's kind of how I got in. I was always helping Joe anyway, back and forward, in reserve games.
Talking about Bert and Dick, obviously, that period of the 90s was really successful with the guys as the management team. What's your memories of that period, and obviously promotion 95, 96 and Norrie passing, and you're obviously involved at that point, so what's your memories of that time?
The early days, I wasn't really involved with the first team, but you'd be there to help them, and they knew who you are, and they still sort of recognise us today.
Yeah,
and I would go and help with the reserve games sometimes, because Joe's wife wasn't getting well. So I'd maybe go and drive the minibus, help with the kit. He'd pack it all, but he would just tell me what to do. So you're always doing what he's under instruction, yeah. So just started doing things like that. But the bonding of the boys as well, some of them were, it was terrific, you know, just the way they conducted themselves and team spirit.
That was a big part in Bert and Dick, what they created here, wasn't it?
Oh, aye.
You see it even now when Evo's here and Mark Miller and the boys, when we had the reunion last year, they're still so close, aren't they?
Aye, Warded.
Brilliant.
Boys, aye. They had a great mix with the West Coast boys and this side. It's quite hard to explain, but just you felt comfy when they're company. Didn't matter who they were. Even Colin Miller, I keep in touch with him on LinkedIn. His nickname was the coach, and he's turned out to be a coach now. He's represented Canada and stuff like that as well. He's done his other stuff. But you can contact any of them, even Andy Smith. I'll maybe bump into him at somewhere, a venue somewhere, and they always looked glad to see you, shake your hand, make you welcome, and they're a great group of boys. The times on that, and then the Norrie thing was tragic. That one, there was a reserve game that night, and of course the place was low. And I went in and couldn't see Bert, couldn't see Dick, David McParland. Then they all went in the car away about 5:30. And I said, well, there's something going on here. So, of course, they came back and then broke the news, and everybody was devastated.
Yeah.
She'd never have played that game. Westie was in bits. It was just horrible. Everybody was gutted. Yeah. And the funeral and all that stuff. And that wasn't nice times at all. No. But they came through it. They worked hard and they won the league that year, and I think that was part of it for the big man as well, you know.
Yeah, definitely. Speaking about your youth coaching at this point, who were the type of players coming through then when you guys started building these groups of youth players?
Well, again, David McParland built a wee sort of network of people he knew from West Coast, Mid-Centre, Whitburn, places like that. And funny enough, about 3 of them were prison officers. And these kind of boys, they knew some of them were rascals, but they got the right kind of people, and we had good squads. When we first did the youth development, we went in the Fife League because we didn't have enough better players to go into the Pro League. The likes of Chris McGroty, Templeman, Stephen Boyle, they were all playing in that league. We did it for a year. We did well, we won the league, blah, blah, blah. Had a wee cup run. And then after that, we went into the Pro League, so they were the sort of mainstay, they 3, and then they were full-time apprentices at the time. And the Fife League were kind of against us because we were so many professional or full-time boys playing, but we didn't have anywhere else to go. And they did accommodate us, which was good at the time, because they gave us a bit of competition, otherwise they wouldn't have just been playing friendlies, eh?
Yeah. Was Colin Nish part of that group as well?
Colin, no, he came later. Oh, you were probably right, you're right. Nish was part of the first team by that time, I think. He was a wee bit... I always remember going to watch Colin Nish. David would send me away to games on a Saturday and say, we have a look and see what you think. So he'd come back and I'd be frustrated to death. I said, Davey, I can't do this. I didn't see anybody. And then he would just sit me down and say, hey man, you're maybe doing it right. They're not all good players. And then the next week I went, and then Colin Nish was playing, and Sean Murdoch had been playing against them. And I'm saying to myself, so Big Sean came in to train with JR, he got him in. We ended up signing and everything was good for him, and then balling again. So we brought Colin he was only 14, but we played him in a competition at Petrivi. I mean, you used to get Rangers and Celtic and all that, didn't they? So he actually played in an under-16 competition, scored 4 goals, and David just signed him after the and that was it done. But he was known in the circuit. I didn't know him, but he'd been with Hearts and Hibs. And,
He was highly rated as a youngster.
He was just like a beanpole, but scored goals for fun. And he just seemed to bounce. Just one of the natural kind of athlete boys, eh?
Who was the best youth player you worked with? So one that stood out, that maybe even didn't make it.
I've got a name in my head here. I think Templeman, there's 2 or 3, McGrory. I was a bit disappointed when Boyley didn't go any further because I thought he had all the ability in the world. And even McGrory, they had everything. He got broken into the first team here. And then after that, somebody filled his head for nonsense he was going to go to Celtic. And that was his downfall. But he just seemed to fade away. He's never heard nothing about him. I think he's a manager now, an amateur team, I believe, in Glasgow. McHattie was another one. I did my youth licence and he was part of the group when they were doing it. Laurel Park came over and McHattie was part of the group, and I didn't realise how good he was until he's got left foot, right foot, and then volleys, and then he's doing all these wee tricks, and I'm saying to myself, but anyway, you can play, son. And then we ended up selling him at Hearts.
Yeah. He was Hearts' first team, wasn't he? For a little bit.
I couldn't believe we sold him. So he had ability. I don't know what happened at Hearts, but then I think he's still playing, isn't he?
He's at Brecon, I think.
That's where he is. I spoke to Andy Kirknash the other time. Aye.
He's doing all right there. So by about 2000, you kind of leave that coaching role, is that right? And then you do become kitman, replacing Joe. So a little bit about Joe. What was Joe Nelson like?
Joe was just different class. I actually bumped into Joe when I played for Cymru. Joe was my manager. And a wee story about his wife, Barbara. Barbara was the first woman referee in Fife.
Right.
And of course she would be, when I was playing under 16, under 18, she was that level of football, that's what she was doing. And of course she Barbara coming in and going, oh no, hardly do. She's like the Willie Collum at that time. She's just, everybody hated her. Very strict, never took any crap for anybody. So that was my sort of first meetings. And then John actually played the son. He played for Cymru the same time as me, and Joe was the manager. And Barbara Arn, she's come along. She was just a wee snotty nose wee bear at that time, running about for the games and everything. She hates me saying that. I'll just say that. They'd be at the side of the pitch. So the whole family came, But then I went on to play at Lokelly, and I came back here eventually with getting involved, and then of course Joe was brought back with Leash. But just the right type of man to be in the place, I just looked after everybody again 7 days a week. Nothing was a problem to him. And then I had to try and tell him at the end that, look, I'll do the wee jobs that you're coming back to do yourselves. Because he would leave his wife, he was looking after her, but he'd come back to the park after doing things, and then I says, look, you stay and I'll finish up for you. And all right. And of course we had Willie Rowland at that time as well, doing the kit. There was a good team spirit there as well. Always a wee bit crack in the laundry and the kitchen, as we called it, and get the toast to it. And
the club meant so much to these guys, It was their life.
Aye, it was their life, Because when Joe did eventually have to leave because Barbara wasn't keeping well, and then they ended up made the decision to put her in the home. So he was going there quite a lot, and then he came back to me and just says, look, do you mind if I come back and help you? I said, oh, Joe, just come with you if I fancy, you know what I mean? So when we moved to Petrivi, we'd come doing stuff like that, and just obviously knew what to do. You could just go and leave him. He did what a kit man does, tidies up and always counting things and putting things away and that. So he was just a great hand. And he'd come here on a Saturday. He was coming on a match day.
Yeah. He was involved here until, 2008 or so?
Aye. And Joe just turned up, you know what I mean? He was just one of the kind of guys. Never any trouble.
No, the players loved him as well,
Aye, all about
quite a few of the guys I've spoken to still go on about how good he was, and he used to do the massages and all that as well.
He was a soapy rub man. He'd get in the shower there and get the soap going, and Because he was an ex-miner and that, and he knew all and he was actually like a physio at times. Because he just knew everything about football and stuff, and he was just a natural guy to be in that kind of job, you know.
Yeah. Brilliant. And by about 2000, the club starts to evolve. The two Jimmies are here. What was that kind of period like for you?
Well, that was a learning curve, because Jimmy sort of took the kit thing by the horns as well. We were always going by budgets, but Jimmy he ordered 3 sets of kit for every player, and it was different colours, and if you didn't wear the right colour you got fined, and there was a discipline change right away. But with Jimmy Nicholl was in after Dick got relieved, so things were kind of normal for a wee while, and then when Jimmy Caldery got appointed, I wasn't really involved with the first team for a wee while, because Joe was still doing it, and I didn't want to step on his toes or anything, so I just used to go and help him, because he was getting a wee bit, and at that time it was the first day I was going in the minibuses to the games. We always used to go in the bus, but then they wanted the stuff there early, so I would drive the minibus and take the kit and help him, and sometimes Bobby and I would go just to make it easier for him, especially away games. Not so bad when you're at home, but there was a sort of revolution goes on with Jimmy, because obviously the budgets goes up and the expectation level went up. It was interesting times then, because he brought Sandy Clark in as well, and then Jimmy Nicholl was always about the place. He always gave the place a spark and that as well, even when maybe things weren't going right. He always wee competitions going and stuff like that, you know.
There seemed to be a good team spirit and togetherness around about that time as well, wasn't there?
Aye. Oh, I just go back to that time, and he started bringing all these Root and Beak and boys like that, and they were all good characters as well, of course. Skerler, good players. The oddball was
Bobby
maybe
Rossi.
He was a bit of an oddball. I think his culture, probably we didn't do or the club didn't do their homework with him, but they saw him as a good player, which is what an international and stuff, but an absolute hothead at times, and then just some of the things he did in here was kind of crazy, but it was his culture, I think, and he didn't like women round about him too much either. He always had that thing about women walking behind you and all that, and we probably should have done our homework as well, a wee bit about him, but no, I mean, I've got great things about Jack DeGear, Todd Day, Ian Ferguson. Even when they first came in, he was a big man for discipline as well. I always remember going to Motherwell in the bus, and he says, "Where are you going?" I said, "I'm going to get the kit off the bus." "Oh no, wee man, Hud there." Young team. So everybody, you got all the team to start taking all the kit in. I said, "But that's my job." He says, "No, he says, you just get in there and sort it out. I'll get them to bring it in." And no, they're just a wee bit respect, if you want, for me, and I thought I'll never forget that, you know.
Aye.
So it all kind of went on for there, and there was never any nonsense with him either. He just had that dressing room ticking over the way he wanted it and kept things. So he was a big miss when he went, and then you had the other characters, Ray and Nipper, and
then the Irish boys come in. Any stories about Dempsey's, Hunts and Richie Burns?
They were all crazy anyway, weren't they? But of course, they were all young boys at that time, weren't they? Hunty's now been caretaker manager at Redden there as well. Richie's doing, I think he's doing his personal training and stuff anyway. But we still keep in touch with them. We've got a chat still going with all these boys, and if it's anybody's birthday, we get the wee crack going. And Nipper, he keeps it all turning over. He's always got something to say about something.
Talking about Nipper, any stories about Nipper? Caused a bit of chaos, didn't it?
Just a bit just a prankster, man, honestly. We come back one day, well, at that time we didn't get fed like we get fed now, so they were putting money in, and I'd go to the cash and carry and get muffins, like chocolate biscuits and stuff like that, just to give them something to come back. Look at Zaid. I had it locked in the cupboard, and of course the next thing he's first in the door. "Right, give me the key. I said, "What are you doing?" He says, and then Scott Walker's locker, we had lockers at that time, and he gets all the muffins and puts all the juice and everything. So there's nothing left in the cupboard. So the boys come in and look, "Hey, where's all the stuff, Mo? What have you done with the stuff?" I says, "Oh, it was there a minute ago." And then they came, "Where it is?" And the next thing, Scotty Walker would come and open his locker, and they would all fall out, and they'd go, "You try to steal all the muffins, you blah, blah, blah." It's just, it just Kerry took off for there,
Brilliant.
A big Scotty's that serious as well. A big honest boy. It wasn't me. Any
other dressing room stories over the years that you can share? So obviously you're in a privileged position. You get to hear team talks and be in the dressing room with the boys and
team talks. Every manager's got their own way of talking to players or addressing them, and you can go back to Bert and Dick. Dick would be the man with the technical, and he was always he'd always tell players what they were good at, and then at half time or something, it gave him a licence then to say if somebody had done something different, what are you trying to do? I'll tell you where to get it. Why are you doing that? And then Bert was the thinker. He was always in the background, and what a memory he had for a game. He would always remember for the first minute to the last minute what went on, whose incidents, this and that, and then get into him, Dick, get into him, and then the referee, tell him, Dick. You could hear him all the time, and he was just one of the kind of boys that knew everything about the game. He never forgot a thing. And I used to say to myself, I can't even mind that happening in the game, and he's bringing it up even after the game. We might go and have a cup of tea in his office, and he would go through the game again, especially if something didn't go right, and it was so particular, just about things that happened there. It was great. And you got other managers with Alan Johnson. He was an overhead man. He did the big screen, and had one of these things where you could move the men about. Most of them, you needed the two guys. You need the
good cop, bad cop type thing.
I'm not saying that they're always that way, but you always get one that will say something then, like the new James and Davey, that James will be general, whereas Davey will go in and be more technical and stuff like that. Jim Jeffries was the same, and he'd let Neil McCann in that day the actual talking, but Jeffries was the one that sort of structures it all. And the sort of the weirdest one was Stephen Kenny. I'll never forget the first time we were playing at Dundee United, the day he got appointed or after it. And Dundee United, they just extended the dressing room a wee bit, so I've got all the hampers in the middle. Went out to the pitch to see somebody, came back in, and he's shoved all the hampers away in a corner. And I'm saying, why would you do that? The next thing, he takes the jacket off and rolls the sleeves up, and he's doing diagonals, like 30 yards, this thing's diagonal walks across the flare, and he's talking to players and telling them what this, and we could do this and that. And I say to myself, they never stood still. That was a different way. I've never ever seen that kind of action before with a manager, But who's the other managers?
You've worked for a few, haven't you?
I'm up to 14 now. I hope it stays that way. Davy Hay, it was Billy Kirkwood who really did all the talking, and Paul Hegarty, they would come in and be. Davy Hay was a quieter kind of manager, but again, I think they discuss all that before they come in, before a team talk. And Big Leash took over for a wee while. He was the same. He was like Mr. Motivator with his half-time talks, and
he had Hamish and Craig Robertson beside him, didn't he?
Craig Robertson and Frenchy, aye. And then I used to help with the 20s at that time, because they lost their coach, I would do that, and then if anybody was injured, and he would come across, wee Birchie was injured and stuff like that, so I was doing kind of stuff, and he would watch how he was crossing and finishing, trying to design it so that they would get to show a wee bit. So that was at Petrie we were then that day, aye. Jim McIntyre and me Cabey was another pair, they were good. I think Jim could have done really well here if they'd given him a wee bit of money to get a striker in. Just circumstances again, I think that was just what he was short. He was just somebody to score goals. But him and Cabey were brilliant. And Jim Jeffries came in and he kept Cabey on, and Neil McCann came in, and then Potts started getting a bit more. Again, they were good. Alan Johnson, as I said, he was doing the overhead. He brought Sandy. And then it was Crawley. No, it was Peter.
Peter Grant, and then obviously James, yeah.
Aye.
Who's been the best management team? Junior.
I think they've all had good things. I mean, obviously I'm a Bert and Dick man. I just like the way they operate, and I'm more that type of age and stuff like that. But I like James. I think he's got his own ideas. Nobody messes him about. Nobody's trapped his door yet to say, it's always there if you want it. But I think he's set his stall out that he's got a discipline about him, and I haven't seen anybody trap his door anyway, no, this year. So
Let's keep it that way.
Aye,
Brilliant.
well, Yogi, I think if he'd maybe got his own man in as well, could have done things about somebody just to keep. Or
It was a difficult period though last year. It was
well,
hard. Again, look at what the job James has done this year and stabilising it and rebuilding it. It's been incredible, eh?
and a lot of the players are still here. I mean, if, everybody was kind of worried when they started the season. We had 10 or I think it was maybe 12 players that were still from the last squad. Last year with that run into the relegation and the playoffs, I think some of the lone players didn't really push on like they should have done. We maybe got them too late because they weren't match fit. They weren't playing for their own teams, as in Lawless and people like that. So they weren't playing. So we had to give them 3-4 weeks.
Yeah.
And we didn't have that time to let them get fit and get them catch up. Bowlworth, boys like that. When you see them playing now, and Lawless and stuff, you're thinking, where were they? They weren't playing like that for us, you know what I mean? Goal scoring, opportunities. And it was frustrating to watch, but
It was difficult, eh? Going back to the dressing room and team talks, what's been the best team talk? Is there anything that spring to mind over the years that even you're motivated coming out that dressing room?
As I keep repeating, there's always managers have all got their own different. I think the motivation comes within sometimes. If you can just get the player mentally right and saying, right, come on, we've got a lot to play for here. Last season was easier because you're winning. It's definitely easier when you're winning. It's harder when you're getting beat and you're trying to lift people like the previous year. We go there like to the Morton game. I never saw that result coming, even out of the blue. You know what I mean? I just like people that get fired up, managers that get fired up. And they didn't really get fired up until something goes wrong, because that's when they flip their lid a wee bit and stuff like that. But that's on the sort of back foot now, because you can't shout and ball at boys like that nowadays, whereas no, I haven't really got any big...
None that springs to mind?
No, really, no.
What for you has been the high points and what's been the low points during your 30 years involved here?
Well, the cup finals have always been good, and one of the biggest compliments we probably had was we went to the cup final, and one of the stewards at Hampden, who they go to all the games and see all the big games, and he came up. I think it was Jim McIntyre. Was it? No, it was Leishman in that. Leishman Cup final. We're all dressed.
Cup final.
And with black suits on, we were really smart. Everybody had a wee flower on, and the boy. And then we went out for the game, and we were like, the boy came up and actually commended us. He says, "You're one of the smartest teams I've ever seen at a final." And I thought, well, that gives you a wee boost as well, because of course it was Celtic got beat, but
it was a tough cup final, that one.
Aye, that was horrible.
But during that period, there was 3 cup finals in 4 years or 3 years?
Yeah. I would good runs, aye. There was kind of hot and cold with the league sometimes. Then the Jimmy's one with Jimmy Calderwood when we...
That's probably the one, eh? We had such a good chance.
We should have got a penalty as well. We should have been 3 at half time, I think, shouldn't we? So, looking back in that game.
I think Dempsey was close with a free kick as well.
Yeah. And the wee Mason was working like a horse. He just up and down like a Trojan man, honestly. But when you go to these places, you see some of these results on the television, when you look back, you think, is there a curse on you when you play Rangers and Celtic? Because we've been to Ibrox and that as well. We've been to Parkhead. The one with Nisbet scores. We should have actually beat Celtic that day. Mm-hmm. The same at Ibrox, we went a couple of times. We should have beat them, but there's always someone turns up a penalty or a foul, and get a free kick at the edge of the box. You think, so here we go, it's the curse is on you again, But I think that day, the Nisbet one, I thought we were actually outstanding for the minute we started to finish.
Yeah. And
the fans appreciated it. We all went across at the end. It was just one of the things.
What about low points? What's been the
relegations?
The difficult ones?
That was the worst last time, that relegation there. Mm-hmm. I just couldn't believe that Queen's Park at home, and you've got, like say, Matty Todd, one mistake he's made and it costs you a goal. Last minute of the game, you're thinking, oh my God, and then just things like that, because you've done your working week. You're expecting to do better. You're working hard. The organisation kind of thing doesn't matter with the result for me. I've got the same job to do every day, and I'm trying to get myself done and keep the place positive as well. You always try and keep a wee spin with that and crack a joke or get the music going. Just break the ice. And even in the low times you get beat, you've got to try and do it the next morning, get them back in again, and never let them come in with their head down. You always give them a good morning, get yourself up, get the head up. You've got to try and, it doesn't go away, you've just got to try and change it.
Yeah. So that was the hardest point, you'd say?
Oh, that was
administration, you've been through that as well, that must have been...
That was another one,
tough.
I was the administrator. So I've ended up doing the cooking, the laundry, the kit, and then at that time, sort of organising for the buses, the food for the pre-match, and sometimes we were getting an overnight if we were way up north or stuff. So I ended up doing all that as well, because there was no really anybody up the stairs that could take over. And the only reason I really started doing it was because to make sure it was done. Because if you didn't have the organisation right, that's when it all goes tits up, and you get things are just... You need a pathway, and it's got to be smooth, even for the manager. And you're not wanting him to be involved with doing all the kind of... That's not his problem. He just needs to get the team in the park and make sure they do their bit. My bit's to make sure it's right at this side, and make sure when we go, it's all done. But I had a conversation with the administrator. He says, you need to take a wage cut. I says, I'm not taking a wage cut. I'm just not doing it. I says, I'm doing all these jobs. He says, okay, leave it with me. And he came back 2 days later and he says to me, he says, you're right, I can't sack. He says, I was sacked, you need to get 3 people in. So, for then on, I kind of got on alright with that boy as well, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
and you kept doing all those jobs, didn't you?
I kept
for a long period.
Aye, but again, it was just free money, and then still things changed a wee bit, and managed to get Ian in, and I was doing the food up until last year, and then got Maria in to do the food. Then Sammy started helping. So things are getting better.
Yeah. Tough period, but then...
Aye. Now we've got Monty, he does all the bus and the hotels and stuff like that. So
brilliant.
I use him like a liaison officer, and he's my man. I go to, and then he puts it on paper, whereas I'm not a computer guy.
Aye.
He makes sure it's all
good
got
guy, Monty.
a paper trail. So there's, when we're ordering anything or things, you've got dates and accuracy. Like this year has been a godsend with the kit, because there's quite a few things missing. So he's on top of it and
brilliant.
Keeps it to Matt and Davey just to see where we are with. Obviously, it's coming from Italy.
Yeah.
And a lot of that stuff's coming from Romania.
Right.
So if customs have been a nightmare as well, it's getting held up there, but it's not necessarily because of anything in the container. It's just there's not enough people there to process
other
it.
Stuff and
Aye, so that last container that left was 3 weeks, and it's sat 14 days in Dover, I think, before it got to us. And that sort of tells whiplashes later on, and then of course I'm still waiting on it to get ready.
You've got the backlog then.
Aye, I've got to try and get it ready for us coming back, which is another nightmare.
So going back to dressing room stuff, Mo, has there been, obviously footballers are known for having superstitions and rituals, and has there been any mad ones over the years that you can remember?
No, you get quite a few that wants to be the last man out. Apart from that, there's no really...
No been anything really wacky or...
No.
You think, what is he doing?
No. We've not had any sort of religious boys or stuff like that, but I've seen it. Like I was at Hibs training ground one day, playing a bounce game, and they've got quite a few boys that want to go and pray and stuff, so that's finding a room for them. And they used to come to the kit room, and Peter would put them in the back where there was nobody, like a storage room, and they could go and pray, things like that. No, we didn't have anything like that. I've never... Even Rossi was... No. I've not come across anything like that, no.
What about unusual requests regarding their kit? We've kind of covered it at the start about cutting the socks and...
They all want kit as tight as it can be, but what they forget is it's going to get washed 30 times, so it doesn't fit them halfway through. McCann's the worst. He just wants things that are like glued to him.
Mm-hmm.
But I says, but Lewis, that'll not fit you in 3 or 4 weeks' time because it'll be washed. And then, true and behold, he comes back to me, he gets a top, and it's like for a 4-year-old now because it's just been washed and dried. We didn't dry stuff outside, it's all tumble dry.
Aye, which obviously shrink stuff.
Shrink stuff again, so that's only just, they're wanting it tight. They think even when they're playing now, they didn't want their shirts too baggy in case somebody grabs them and stuff like that, but...
So we changed days from your time in the 90s when all the shirts were really baggy, weren't they?
They were all XL, eh? Jesus, honestly, everybody, even the likes of Boyle and McGrorty, they're all playing with XL strips and the sleeves the way down, and you see some of the photos. I watched the old stuff with Liverpool and stuff like that. The Reebok kit they wore, the Michael Owen, he's got a Fowler. They're wearing things that are like gliders on them, aren't they? But everybody wants it. We didn't get the match fit tight ones out, but we do get a sort of trimmer's make. But I don't think they want it tight because if it shrinks, you've not got anywhere to go.
Aye, yeah. What's been your most memorable moment? If you could pick one moment over the 30 years or so. You've obviously been involved in a lot of promotions, so there's quite a few to pick from. Cup finals, you said.
I think the day at Morton, that day with McIntyre, there was what a turnout we had. The boys turned out that day. There was, we must have had 4,000 or 5,000 that game.
Aye, it was scorching hot, wasn't it?
Aye, it was beautiful, and you didn't really reflect on the things until after it, because you're just taking it as part of the day, and of course you're thinking about getting all the stuff home. But that was a good one. Even here was a great day with the boys going across to the fans on the last day here. The earlier ones with Dick and that, as I say, I wasn't really involved with the first team then as well, so I was like a spectator sometimes because I didn't go down to the dressing room and things like that because there was no place for me, so I was involved with the youth and we would be doing something different or something. No, we were at the games but weren't down in the dressing room area.
Cool. What's been the biggest challenge over your time as kit man?
Oh, I think the administration thing was the biggest one. Where you were, I'm not saying the boy came in and cut the budget to nothing, but you had to justify everything that you got. That was before the former players started, and we'd got this wee association going where I could come to you boys and they would always help me. They never said no yet to anything I've said or asked for. I would say that's probably the hardest part with administration then.
You mentioned the former players there. How big a help has the association been for you?
Oh, they've been massive because I've gone to them for like just even ankle socks and stuff like that. I can understand it from the club's point of view. They haven't got excess or loads of money lying about doing nothing. Everybody's got to be paid, and the bills, it must cost, I wouldn't know, I'd hate to think what it costs to run a football club for a weekly basis, but so it was a great outlet for me to go and get slips, ankle socks, towels. I think they've helped with the contribution to the van, heat presses, anything I can sort of get without having to go and ask the club for. The tech ball table, towels even, before Brian got involved. Anything at all really that I'm sort of struggling with, and they've always come up good. They've always helped me with some of it. It must be thousands over the years.
Yeah, aye, brilliant. What's been the most enjoyable part of being a kit man at this football club?
I think actually what it does is I'm 72, something coming up 72 this year, and I think what it does is it keeps me young in the mind. I mean, I know folk think I'm an old fart and I know that, but when you're working with young people, it keeps you young. And it keeps you on your toes because football players are around for being pranksters and all the rest of it. And I'm always got my one eye on them run by, you know what I mean? You keep your fouls in front of you and watch your enemies at the back of you. So I'm always one of the kind of guys that I had a great story one day. The young boys were here way back when Calderwood and that were here. Dick Sladdy, Yano, Saban and all they boys. So they've decided they're going to have a go at me one day and put me in the ice bath. We had a wee ice bath in the home dressing room. So I walked in, and of course the lights are out. So the first one comes to me, I feel him hit on my back. So I managed to get him off. The next one comes, I just swung my arm and hooked him right in the chin. And then I swung the other one. And then, of course, they're all saying, oh, that was Sayre. I said, you come back, you'll get another one. And then, of course, the light goes on then. So I've got Ian Campbell on my back. So I just kept going towards the bath. And I ended up throwing him in the bath. And he turns and says to me, I said, I'm going to tell my mum, I'm going to tell you. Don't worry about it, son. I'll be phoning her the night. It was just a wee prank thing, but they were trying to put me in the ice bath.
Superb. Who are you close to in football, Mo?
Sorry?
Who are you close to? Who's your big pals?
Dick, I'm still very tight with Bert and Dick. Go to a lot of games and we just sit and talk. I'm going on holiday with Dick this next month. John Young, Ian Campbell. I've got a lot of great pals in football that I've met over the years, and then even like say Watty, when I played junior football, he was at Oakley, and how we always went for a pint after the game. Didn't matter. There was no sort of animosity after the game. You'd probably kick each other to death in the 90 minutes, but after that it was pals. Freddie Aiken, Jimmy Bone, John Young, Big Rab Douglas. They make you feel so welcome when you go to these places, or even bump into them in the street. Went to Tynecastle on Saturday, watched the Hearts Aberdeen game, just walked in the door and there's Gary Locke. A lot of time for him. He was great pals with Gary Mason and Andrew Todd.
Big Toddy, aye.
But never forget you, and it's just to ask you if you need anything, could they do enough for you, you know what I mean?
Good people.
Aye.
Fast forward a little bit, 2019, you got a big shock when you're inducted into the Hall of Fame. What was that moment like for you?
Aye, that was actually quite strange. I'm there for Nipper. Who was the other one to win? Stuart Petrie, wasn't it?
Petrie, I think.
Two of them, aye.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of there, play the year thing I'm thinking about. Then all of a sudden this video starts playing, and it's the Doc, and then you and this, and then Simon Donnelly, and I said, that's me they're talking about. The food started talking about food, and then Michael Muffet, a lot of chorizo from away. And I was saying, what's going on here? And I didn't know. I generally did not know. Because I nailed Sammy like 2 or 3 days after it. She's away on holiday, she wasn't there either. I said, you know, so I was sorting the secrecy, I couldn't tell you. But they'd been on the phone to my son as well. Through the, what do you call it, her work. This girl had just got in touch with him, and they were all the same. I didn't know anything about it. So if the only downside for me was I never got to invite any of my pals, or, people that I want to have been at the thing.
Yeah.
Jimmy Bone, for example, boys like that. But it was a culture shock to me that night. I just couldn't. I'm thinking, what am I going in the Hall of Fame for? You know what I mean? It's usually players, isn't it?
30 years though, Mo. You're in your 30th year now, aren't you?
30th year,
club,
aye.
so
Aye.
it's well deserved. And then another different kind of question. We're in your kit room now. There's loads of pennants from opposition in games, loads of football stuff here. Over the years you've probably collected quite a bit of football stuff. What's your best bit of memorabilia? What means the most to you?
Well, I like the Man United pennant. We played them that day. It was Nipper's testimonial. And then I was lucky enough when Alec came up, just before he had his brain stuff.
I remember that day, yeah.
I got him to sign it. He came down to see Bert and Willie Carlick and the boys like that. I just brought him down here because they were wanting to do it in a lounge and it was too busy. I said, just come down here. So they all came down, and I went and met the Man United boys that night. Alec wasn't at that game because he was moving house. So they were in the Kevo house. Went out there, met them and told them what was going on. The team coach actually, they flew up from Manchester, EasyJet. That's how good they were. And then the bus had arrived here to pick them up, their bus. Brought them in here, and then I spent the afternoon with 2 or 3 of the coaches just talking football, and I got a nice shirt off them and got the pennant. It was just
brilliant, eh?
Aye, they didn't know who I was or anything like that. Another good one was like when we played Arsenal. I think the fans didn't really appreciate the stature of that club when they came, and the quality of the boys. I mean, they sent us first team up that night.
Mm-hmm. I remember that, yeah.
They were magnificent, weren't they?
I think it's Nipper tells the story. They're all in the tunnel, and every Arsenal player's 6 foot plus,
Oh.
no matter what position they were in.
They were actually ducking coming out the door. There's just some of them, and then Henri and that. It's just their ability. Canu, they were all there. They all played. It was just. I don't think I took it until after the game either. How good Arsenal were. There wasn't a big crowd that night either. I thought there could have been a bigger crowd for, especially the team that they brought. Even Man United. I mean, Rooney, Giggs, all these boys all turned up for Nipper that day. And they also played a testimonial in Ireland that night as well. So we got a right good first team squad. I think we did them proud as well, because the chairman at that time, Roy, he gave them all a nice remembering thing. It was good. Aye.
And Nipper's the last person to have a testimonial here. It's kind of changed that in football now, eh? Players don't tend to stay at clubs.
No, it's all 2 years, 2 years and years contracts and stuff. Aye. Loyalty seems to be. I wouldn't say it's doing it to the players sometimes, though. I know they're all using these agents now. I know it makes it easier, but I still think you need that bond with the manager and the player. I know the representatives now sort of look for their interests and stuff like that, but they never get the agents are getting something out of it, aren't they?
Yeah,
They're all, they're not just doing it for the good of it. They're wanting a few quid as well.
Yeah, game's changed there.
You very rarely know you see boys, apart from these guys in England, these 400 I seen the other day there. You didn't get that now in that boy.
How do you reflect back on your 30 years being involved at Dunfermline Athletic?
Oh, it's been massive for me. Didn't ask my wife though, because she fucking sometimes she just wonders where I go at times, because you can be away for 2 days, you can be away all day on the one day, like Inverness or Ross County, you're away at 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning, and that's you till 9 o'clock at night, Peterhead. I don't think people realise how much time you actually spend on the road for these games. I'm a great adversary, but not personally, but see where likes the team go away. When you play Peterhead, you play Ross County and that, it's very difficult to ask a player to get on a bus at 7 o'clock in the morning, or Josh Edwards, for example, stayed in Kilmarnock. He's then got to get from Kilmarnock to wherever the pickup point is, usually Perth for the boys, for like the back of 9 o'clock. So he's up at 7 o'clock, 6:30 to be. Then you're sitting on a bus for another 3 hours. Then you're going to have your lunch and then go and play. It's very difficult for a boy to. There's not many people can do it. Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes we should stay overnight. A lot of boys don't like it, but the preparation's there, and then you've got I'm not saying the downtime, but
A bit more relaxed and focused though, probably, eh?
well, if you're sitting on a bus for 3.5 hours and then having something to eat, and then you're expecting to be in 90 minutes, it's difficult. I've done it, but I'm not playing. And you're saying to yourself, how do you do it, the boys? You know what I mean, they're all mega fit now too. There's very few of them. They've got to go through a regime to be fit, and then they get past with the physio and stuff. But then they'll come back here in a couple of weeks' time. There'll be hardly anybody overweight. Nobody. They all just do their own thing now, and they'll all be doing things they knew. Even on holiday, they'll be working.
We've seen that today. Young Andy Todd's in here using the gym.
Aye, well, he's using the gym, and just. I think most of them get a programme to go home with, and that's how. Over the months, they just keep doing it. But they naturally want to be fit anyway. They didn't want to come back unfit.
Yeah, it's changed again, eh? For your time, probably when you first started.
Oh, you get some boys that are 2 stone overweight. But the first day back, nowadays that doesn't happen. No.
So this football club's been a big part of your life, and it'll continue to be.
Well, we'll see how long I can go. I still feel fit enough, but sometimes you need to just change it. There's the manager there, come in.
How are we doing, James?
Mate, all right?
All right, aye, good.
How's you been?
Top notch, as always.
Not got round to you yet.
It's all good.
We'll give you a shout later on, right?
I'll go. Thanks, James, aye.
See you later.
See ya.
He's actually a breath of fresh air at times. Just the way he goes about. and he's no frightened to ask you some at times.
Aye.
Sometimes if things are no, what do you think? I mean, you respect that as well.
Yeah.
That was one of the things, first things Jim McIntyre ever said when he took the job as well. He says, look, if you think I'm not doing something right, tell me. You've done it, you can what's happening. And to be fair, they did listen. All you can do is recommend things and stuff, and they took it on board, much the same as him at times. So.
Brilliant. Onwards and upwards, Mo.
Aye, well,
It's an exciting time as a supporter at the moment, I think.
aye, well, I'm looking forward to see who he brings in. That'll be seen in the next week or so, won't it? So hopefully the club back him with a budget, because we'll all need to kick on again, because when you look at the teams in it, and I was watching like say the playoff games with Ayr United and Partick. We played Partick and we actually battered them. I don't know how the penalties beat us, but pardon me, I think that on the day we were a 10 that day. I think we were brilliant against Partick, but just couldn't score the goal to get the winner. But, so there's a lot of work to be done there, and then you always need a sort of backup if somebody gets a bad one. Touch wood, you know what and that, but it does happen. Players lose form. They're just human beings, aren't they? At the end of the day, they're no machines. But onwards and up. But I'm looking forward to next season.
Confident, eh? We're going out quite confident after the season.
Aye, well, not too confident. I think you've got to earn that. You've got to work hard, and the way they worked last year, but they came back, and that lunchroom there is second to none at times. When you go in, the crack's brilliant, and they're all taking the mickey, and they've got a darts tournament going or something, and then the manager's sitting in one corner and he's getting a bit crack back and forward. You know what I mean? It's a good mix.
Brilliant. So important that, isn't it?
I think that's lacked in a few managers here. They didn't mix with people, and at the end of the day, you need to get the best out of the guys, and they need to respect you as well in the same sort of breath. So I think if they're on the same page as you, it helps a lot. Aye.
Brilliant, Mo. Well, I'm going to let you get back to sorting kit for next season, and thanks again for your time. It's been brilliant catching up with you, as always. Thank you for listening. Remember to subscribe to this podcast, which is available on all popular platforms such as Apple iTunes, Spotify and Google Podcasts. Thanks to our guest in this episode of Walking Down the Holbeath Road. This podcast was produced by Jan Motkiewicz and music supplied by Stuart Dusty Miller. We look forward to speaking to another former par in the next episode.